This is Ether Dynamics back with a short two-part announcement video. First off, I know Fallout 4 is just around the corner, and a lot of people are eagerly anticipating its release. Well, I'd like to discuss plans here that are intended to help mod Fallout and Skyrim, and potentially a few other games that open themselves up to the modding community. For those of you keeping track of my Nexus and Steam releases, you'll see I've published a new mod called Shadow of the Dragon God. This was originally developed for the boss battles competition over on Reddit, but has been expanded to include multiple boss fights for high-level characters, a lore-friendly original storyline, fully voice-acted NPCs, as well as further AI improvements from previous videos. NPCs are now aware of the conditions of their allies and enemies, and will take actions appropriate to whatever AI module I attach to them. For example, those with a healer module might restore wounded comrades. Defensive controllers may have modules to resurrect the fallen, or use protection abilities over themselves and allies. And offensive controllers may have modules that move them to the front line to weaken or disable key members of an enemy party. Lastly, enemies are smart enough to use expendable items like potions when things get rough. These are all in very limited supply and will run out, but it helps to balance against the huge array of potions, scrolls, shouts, enchantments, and spells available to the player. So, if you've been looking for some tough boss fights that vary significantly from vanilla Skyrim, or want to explore some deeper mysteries of the Elder Scrolls lore, there are links below in the description. This new mod uses the first instance of the AI framework I discussed in an earlier video. 2 incarnations of this framework will be released in the near future. The first will add situationally aware enemies throughout the game, but in a way which should maximize its compatibility with other mods out there. The second will be more of a modder's resource, allowing other authors to easily use this enhanced modular AI to augment their creations. Ideally, I would like to refine this to the point where I can make it available for other moddable games as well, such as Fallout 4, The Witcher, or any others. Lastly, the framework will start to incorporate tactical awareness, as demonstrated in my first videos. Because of the massive amounts of data needed for clustering, tactical awareness will be worked on as a communal project. Everyone can contribute, and I'll work on a way to compile the clusters. Again, this will work in Skyrim, but I'd like to make this available for Fallout 4 folks and others as well. The second big announcement is the upcoming creation of organic factions. Rather than just hard-coded quests like the Companions or Dark Brotherhood, I will introduce factions into the game that grow, diversify, and fight each other outside the direct influence of the player. This means the groups of vampires, werewolves, and the Forsworn will all constantly be vying for power, not just when the player decides to become a faction member. Depending on the player's style and the ethics of their character, they can choose who they try to befriend or crush. The Organic Factions framework will use all the in-combat enhancements of the aforementioned AI framework and will be broken into 2 phases. Phase 1 would be the basic setup. Every day, the system would check a percentage chance to have each faction gain power, meaning more members joined and/or existing members level up, including several unique individuals. After certain thresholds, patrols will start going out to various sites until they finally start challenging minor forts or towers for control of a region. Depending on the faction, this can also affect the economy of the given hold. For example, rampaging werewolves or highly organized bandits might make the roads incredibly dangerous. No safe roads means no trade, which causes economic inefficiency and higher prices. I would also give the player the option of establishing their own group, which they could assign to key locations or patrols. Phase 2 would allow for more rivalry between organic factions, based on the decisions of certain key NPCs. This would include the possibility for the player to negotiate with certain leaders depending on the strength of the faction, the player, rivals, and the like. Note, if the player elects to kill a moderate leader, one or more aggressive, uncompromising lieutenants may take their place. Along similar lines, the faction will change its composition based on the nature of each leader. For example, the Forsworn faction might start off being led by a Briarheart fighter, who would promote other fighters to be their top lieutenants and gain levels faster. If that leader were killed and replaced by a Hagraven, then Hagravens and mages would start rising through the ranks. This prevents each faction from getting static or predictable, while simultaneously pursuing the same overall faction goal. Lastly, factions will start to become more complex and diverse as they gain power, money, and influence. For example, a faction of bandits may eventually attract the services of an alchemist. This alchemist will now provide all members with potions, which can completely change combat with a given faction. And, as the alchemist levels, the potions will similarly increase in potency. This presents the player with another layer of strategic challenge. If the player wants to eradicate the faction, they may attempt a targeted assassination for just the alchemist. depriving the entire faction of their precious potions. If the player is more stealth inclined, then these bases can become juicy targets. They can sneak into the camp and steal all the specialty items, depriving the faction of potions, scrolls, enchanted items, etc., all while fattening their pockets. This can create a much more dynamic Thieves Guilds type of gameplay without the hard-coded quests. In fact, the player may elect to keep certain factions around simply because they can steal the most from them. After all, why have an alchemist or enchanter on your payroll when you can have your enemies pay the bills while you reap the fruits of their labor? For the more politically minded, the player may also opt to bribe or place a bounty on the head of faction members. This can lead to exciting confrontations when the NPCs leave the safety of their strongholds to try to forage or purchase supplies. The bottom line is, any way you play it, the system provides an ever-changing, dynamic environment, which rewards players who are observant and think strategically. As I develop these utilities, what would help the most would be to expand the discussion. If you'd really like to see all of this reach its maximum potential, this is the time to open up and share, cross-post, and loop people in. I look forward to hearing from all of you. Speaking of feedback, there have been folks that have taken the time and energy to really dig into this subject. I'd like to thank Broken181, ToggleAI, PixelPrinny, Sashido, my friends and family, and everyone on the Reddit, Nexus, and Steam forums for all diving into this topic with me. Your insight and reflections have been inspirational and much appreciated. This has been another presentation by Etherodynamics. Thank you for watching.